Good evening. My name is Courtney McClain, and I'm a lifelong resident of Spartanburg County, and I'm currently running for South Carolina's 4th Congressional District, and I'm speaking in opposition of Project Sparrow. It is clear that outside of the people who are making money from being in support of this project, that the overwhelming majority of county residents do not want this data center. As an elected official, you were elected to represent the interests of the people who voted you in, not corporations who were lining their pockets while the residents paid the bill.
Hello, everyone. This is Black Girls Politickin. I'm Michaela, and today we are here with
Courtney McClain.
Yes, we are here with Courtney McClain. Okay, first and foremost, let me just say, I've been stalking both your Instagram pages because the aesthetic is so good. Are you doing these graphics? Do you have a graphic designer? What's going on over there?
So my team is actually composed of all Black women, and we actually
Wow.
all went to school together. And so my background is in journalism, and so
Mhm.
my friends were also in the J school. So my friends that were like, "Oh, I would definitely love to help with the
Mhm.
campaign." So they do the graphics, they help with video editing, and just all the things digital.
Tell us,
Mhm.
who is Courtney and what made this the moment that you chose to run for office? Why now?
Yes. So my name is Courtney McClain, and I'm running for South Carolina's 4th Congressional District. And so that covers Spartanburg and Greenville in the upstate of South Carolina. And I started my journey when I was 19 years old. And at the time, I had never written a petition, spoken to elected officials. I had definitely never coalesced with my community. But during that time, our former sheriff said some very offensive things to the Black community. And everyone was, of course, on Facebook and Instagram saying, how could he say that? But no one was willing to actually speak with him and hold him to account in that way. And so I went to change.org and I looked up how to write the petitions. And so I made it. I got some signatures from the community. And then I went to city council and I presented it. And while I was presenting the petition and why people signed on to it, the sheriff actually got up in the middle of me speaking and walked out. And
Wow.
I actually still have the video on my Instagram. If you want to watch, you can literally see him get up and leave. And since then, I really learned the power of community, holding your elected officials accountable, and also not allowing my age to be something that is seen as a hindrance,
Mm,
because a lot of times when we're young, we think, oh, we kind of need to stay in the background and let older people with more experience do those types of actions. But in that moment, I was one of the youngest people in the room, and I was using my voice to hold our elected officials accountable. And since then, of course, I've had a lot of different movements since that time. But the moment that I knew I wanted to run for this seat in this year, it really came during the 2024 election and seeing how all of that unfolded.
yeah.
And of course, we had a very qualified Black woman running, but just seeing how her character was disparaged, seeing
Mhm.
all of the different things that they were uplifting Trump for, but at the same time, we're saying she's not enough for.
Mhm.
And I really wanted to prove that not only we are qualified to be in these spaces, but that we can win. And
Yeah.
I think oftentimes, especially in the South, Black women, we're not really placed at the front lines. We are put in the background of the movement. We are always the ones that are strategizing, getting everything done. But as far as being the face, it's always someone else. And so
Mhm.
I told myself, after all of these years of really being that background and then finally making it to the front, why not go ahead on and really use all that I've learned to create the change that I know South Carolina needs?
Now, Courtney, let me just say, you just said a mouthful, right? There's a lot that there's a lot for us to kind of sit here on and unpack. One, you talked about age, which of course
Mhm.
I want to touch on. We're both Gen Z. I think this is a huge moment for Gen Z. You talked about electability, which is something that I've been talking about for a while now, specifically in the South. I think it's something that continues to really come up. I don't know if you're following it, but with this current Senate race here in the state of Texas,
Mhm.
electability has been a huge issue around Jasmine Crockett's name. Like, can she be the one to win? And we actually just did a video and a small series about how many Black women have actually been elected. And that just
Mhm.
really discounts this idea of electability, right?
Yeah.
You also touched on this idea of change.org, which I love because sometimes you have to be mad enough to go make a petition, right? Like sometimes, and I think, we think about civic engagement, we think about voting, we think about all of these things. But for you, your journey started with something as simple as starting a petition, right? And that has allowed you to blossom into now running for office. So
Mhm.
we are part of a generation that has grown up during school shootings, economic instability, a global pandemic. I don't know about you. I graduated in 2020. I graduated at the house, right? So how does being Gen Z change not only what you expect from the government, but what you
Mhm.
feel like you're unwilling to accept from it as well?
Yes, I think our generation, we were positioned very uniquely where we had the time where we had like the Game Boys and the DSs and the Wii's where we didn't really have social media, but once we did get to like middle school, high school, and it started getting like bigger, we kind of grew up with it. So I
Mhm.
feel like we're kind of in like that sweet spot of seeing what life was and then what it's become now. And I think that's given us a unique perspective as to how we would like to see the world. And for me, especially being an activist and now running for office, I know that our generation is holding people accountable. I
Yes.
mean, even when it comes to my own comments, and
Mhm.
I look through them and people are like, so are you going to support this? Are you doing this? And I'm like, yes, yes, yes. Like, and of course, sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, why would they think that I wouldn't support this? But
Mhm.
I know that in a political time that we're in, now we often have people who are posing as friends that are really foes. And
Mhm.
so I understand that concern that they have and wanting to make sure that who they're going to elect is someone that is truly going to represent them. Because we've had so many politicians come through that pretend like, oh, yes, when I get there, I'm going to do this and I'm going to support this. And then they get there and it's a huge disappointment. So I'm very glad that I am being held accountable, but also that I'm not having to lie and say that I'm supporting something that I don't, because I genuinely have a great moral compass to
Yeah.
where I know what I do want to support. And I'm really excited for this journey ahead. And I know that our generation, we are going to build our own seat at the table. I mean, we have no choice.
Yeah.
All of the older politicians are either retiring or unfortunately dying out of their seats, and someone else has to pick up that mantle. And
Yeah.
so, who better to do that than our generation?
Yeah, 1000%. And I think one thing you also touched on is this idea of not necessarily waiting, right? You talked
Mhm.
about, this idea, and I think a lot of Black women, this is really why I started Black Girls Politics, and so many of us do the work behind the scenes.
Mhm.
And there's a lot that comes with being stepping in front of the scene. So what has that transition been like for you?
It has been so interesting. I think, of course, during my senior year of college was when I was really on the front lines. Like they were like, okay, Courtney is the one that
Mhm.
is organizing this protest. She's the one that's writing this bill in the Senate. This is what she is doing. And so I think the transition from being on the front lines for in the activist movement as opposed to being on the front lines in the political arena,
Yeah,
those have been two
two different.
completely different things because for me, in activist world, I don't ever have speech. I was
Mhm.
always very off the cuff, and of course, I never say anything crazy, but
Yeah.
I was always giving very impassioned speeches. And so now it's like, okay, Courtney, what are you going to say at this event? And I'm like, oh, I have to write speeches now. I have to be
Yeah.
more polished. I have to kind of come with a more, I guess, like respectful aura to myself. And so that has been something that has been very interesting for me. I obviously don't want to water myself down in any way, but
Absolutely.
that's been something that I've been grappling with is figuring out how to still be that progressive fighter that I am, but also knowing that I am in a conservative leaning district, and some of the things that I support
Mm,
they've heard on Fox News that it's communist and socialist. And
yeah.
so we've really just been working on how that messaging is going to come about and how we're going to really push these ideas that are helpful for everyone and allow for them to understand that just because I am running as a Democrat, I am here for everyone, which is something that our current representative has not done or
It's
believes in.
And you know what? I love that you talk about being there for everyone. Now, let me tell you, like I said, I've done a deep dive. So I was going through some of your top campaign issues. You talk about expanding access to healthcare, making housing more affordable,
Mhm.
investing in public education, reducing the cost of living. These are all things that I think in everyone's mind, we're like, yes, like these are things that need to happen. How did you
Mhm.
zone in on your policy priorities? And what's the true focus within the first, let's just say 90 days of
Yeah.
your taking office?
So my parents come from, my dad was an educator and my mom
Oh,
was a
nice.
nurse. So that is why I'm very impassioned about the importance of education and allowing pe for people to have access to said education. And then of course with my mother and my grandfather were nurses. And so I always knew the importance of healthcare. And we often, especially in South Carolina, we have the eighth highest maternal mortality rate, and
Mhm.
it's even higher for Black women. So I know that that is something that is important. And we also need to make sure that when it comes to older members of our families, I have seen my aunts and my uncles needing that extra care. And that should not be a luxury. It should be a right for everyone. And so those are why I really honed in on those. And for housing, my partner, he actually suffered from homelessness when he was in elementary school.
Mhm.
And of course, my zone that I was in, I obviously wasn't in like a terrible zone, but I was able to see children at my school who didn't have a lot and really seeing the struggles that they had. And of course, now that I'm older, I'm able to know that housing can tie into that, the environment that you're coming from. If you don't have running water, if you're not able to have AC and heating, that is going to affect you when you get to your schooling, which then impacts your education. And so making sure that people have affordable housing, again, that should not be a luxury, that should be a right. And something that is often brought up actually within the district is we have a apartment complex that was supposed to be quote unquote affordable,
Mhm.
but instead they cut so many corners to where the actual quality of the housing is so subpar. They
Wow.
put laminate tiles on top of
Mhm.
concrete. Some of the units don't have AC and heating. And that is something that I'm also really passionate about is making sure that you have quality homes that you can afford because affordability shouldn't mean that you're now living in an environment where, yes, you have a roof over your head, but you have no other utilities that you need.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to focus on housing just a little bit, right? I think, like I said, I'm from Texas, born and raised in the South. And there's this idea, right, that you grow up, you go to school, you do everything right,
Mhm.
you buy a house. And I think a lot of Gen Z are like, well, that's the part that I'm stuck at, right? Like I was able to go to school, I got a degree, I have a job, but I can't quite get over that hump to buy a house. So what do you say to individuals who are almost stuck in this like resource limbo, right? They make too much to afford, or they make just enough to maybe afford rent, but they don't quite make enough to afford a home of their own.
Yes, and that is of course by design as
Yeah.
well. When you see all of these different corporations that are coming in, they're buying up the housing, pushing up the prices to where someone can maybe rent a home, but they're never actually owning their home. And that is why really in my platform I have that I want to restrict how much these corporate entities can control housing and just buy up all of these homes and really push people out of their areas. And I think for Gen Z, especially for us, we are seeing an astronomical increase in housing
Oh
prices
my
to
gosh.
where even when, like, I have a master's degree,
Mhm.
but I think even if I were to try to go buy a house today, I would probably be knocked to the ground with whatever price they're telling me to put down. But I think for us, I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity because we did put in so much work. And now, I mean, with the current administration, now they're taking away all of the safeguards that we had in regards to paying back our loans or even taking out loans to get that schooling. And so we're kind of being hit from every angle.
Yeah.
And most of us are, about to turn 26. We're going to be off of our parents' health care. And so that's something that I really just want to make sure that everyday living is possible and it's not something that people, oh, maybe I'll get a house when I'm 30. No, you should be able to get a house at the same age that your grandparents were able to get their homes. But of course, like I said, it's been by design that they increase the prices because they're more concerned with corporate profit over your actual personal milestones that you're wanting to make.
Yeah, and I think that's real, right? Like it almost makes you feel like, am I not doing enough? Because we watched grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles buy these homes. And so now you're in a position. And again, to your point, I also have a master's, and it's like, well, what do we do all this schooling for if we can't get the things that you quote unquote promised us, right?
Mhm.
And so I do want to pivot a little bit. Black Girls Politicking centers the idea that Black women are not just participants in politics, but we truly are the architects of it a lot of times. What does it mean for you to openly claim power as a Black woman in this race, and how does that shape the way you want to lead?
Yes, well, of course, I am the only Black woman that is in this race, and I'm actually the only person of color, period, also in
Wow.
this race. So that is something that some people thought was going to be an hindrance, but as we have seen, it has really become my superpower that I've been able to coalesce with our African American community and also with Gen Z and also with women. And so I think oftentimes people really try to put our identity as something that's going to hold us back. But in the time that we are in right now, that is our power. And I really hope that in this race, I'm really able to harness that power and show that I come from a lineage. We had Fannie Lou Hamer, we had Harriet Tubman, we've had Kamala Harris, all of these architects of great movements who have done great things for the country. And I think in the South in particular, we have so many Black women who were the architects of movements who have never gotten acknowledgement for it. And so people act like it never happened. But for us, we know where these movements began. We know who was really pushing the men who were on the front lines to do what they were doing. It was us. And so being able to harness that power and really be kind of a shining light for a new generation of leadership in South Carolina, that is what I really want to push and that I hope people accept for me, especially as a new candidate in this race.
There are a lot of young women between the ages of 18 and 34 that follow
Mhm.
Black Girls Politicking, especially young Black women. What do you tell the women that want to run for something but may be fearful or feel like they need to have it all together or they're just not quite ready? What do you tell those women?
I would say we're not playing it safe anymore.
Mhm.
We need to go ahead on and use our experiences, use our qualifications, because all of these men, especially the men that I'm running against, if you look, they didn't have any prior experience before running for office. Oftentimes we think, oh, we need to start at local, then go to the state, and then do Congress. But if you know that you have the experience, whether it's in activism or doing the lobby work or just being that coalition builder and knowing your strengths and harnessing your community, use those. Because at the end of the day, we all want what's best for our communities. And we know that when the Black community is lifted up, everyone lifts up with us. And when we are left behind, that is when all of the pieces shatter. And so make sure that you are confident in who you are because you have those qualifications. You should step up in your power and don't let anyone tell you that because of the color of your skin or because of how old you are, that you are not qualified. You are probably more qualified than everyone else in the race that you're maybe running against.
Yeah. And honestly, you just never know, right? You never know how voters are going to choose the day that they go into the ballot box. You really never know what might resonate with voters. You have shared things that make you so relatable, but also showcase such an immense passion for this work. You just literally never know who's sitting to your left, who's sitting to your right. Having those conversations, like you said, building community, harnessing the power of the individuals in your network, that is super duper important. I want you to tell us, why are you the best candidate for this role, and how can people get involved with what you're doing?
So I am the best candidate for this race. I guess giving a little background about the area. So we've had the same representative for about 6 years now, and he has not held a town hall in the past 3 years.
Wow.
And so not only is he not at, he is absent in the community, but when recently a lot of constituents went to his district office, they locked the doors and they wouldn't let them in. So
What?
not only is he refusing to have town halls when you come to the district office, they don't want to talk to you there. That is someone who does not care about what the people have to say because he thinks this is a red district, a Republican is always going to win.
Mm.
But one thing that I'm going to do is I was with those constituents that day. I was there knocking on that door with them. And I've been able to go to a lot of spaces that he's written off. All of these different areas that are very important for the Black community. I've gone there. he's never been. When
Wow.
I go to these colleges and they say, yeah, we've invited him, he's never come, but I was there. Being able to harness the power and really the hope of these communities, that is something that draws me apart on just a characteristic level. But of course, when it comes down to policy, I actually want to support everyone, regardless of who voted for me. And I am not going to be someone who is just waiting for the president to tell me what to do. I
Mm.
have my own policy priorities, and that is something that I want to deliver because I've actually been in the community and I know what is important to our community, not just what the nationals is telling us is, oh, this is polling well here. Maybe you should put this there. No, I'm going to the city council meetings. I'm going to county council. I'm meeting with the neighborhood associations. I'm going to those small businesses. I'm making sure that everyone's voices are heard so that when I do get into Congress,
Mm.
that I will be able to properly represent the desires and the concerns of the constituents and not just what a consultant is telling me or what the president is trying to tell me.
Yeah, and I love that. I love, love, love that. It's so important to have representation that shows up, right? Hollow representation is not representation. You have to
Mhm.
show up, you have to be present. Now, here's the thing. When you become Congresswoman, let's start there. We got to start speaking this into existence.
Yeah.
Tell us, how can we help get you there? What can we do? How can we donate? How can we block, walk, phone bank, all the things?
Yes, so everything is located on McClain4SC.com. And that is FOR. Some people thought it was like the number four, it's the
Yeah.
actual the actual word for it. So on there it has the donation link where you can sign up to be a volunteer and also if you want to become a field lead. And we're actually doing our volunteer training on Friday, and then that's going to be our first one to kind of, get everybody excited. And then we're going to be having some more. So we're going to be having our official kickoff on February the 21st, and it'll be in both Spartanburg and Greenville. So we're going to be knocking doors, doing phone banking, text banking, and really making a whole day of action. And then, of course, after that, we're going to have plenty of events coming up. And I really want to make sure that I'm doing town halls every week after filing. So that'll most likely start in April, and I'll be able to meet with all 17 of the different areas in the district and be able to talk to them where they are. So if you ever want to help with events, if you're in the area, we would love to have you there. If you have just some time on the weekend, you want to take 30 minutes to do phone calls, definitely attend one of our volunteer trainings. And again, all of that can be found on McClain4SC.com. And then, of course, I think the biggest one is donating and funding this campaign. So we are a grassroots campaign. I do not take any corporate PACs, unlike our current representative. And I'm also not a multimillionaire either. So we really need the donations. Anything helps. $5 adds up. If you're able to give $100, that would be even better. Like we definitely need that to help with our voter outreach because this is going to be an uphill battle, but it is a winnable battle. And with everyone's help, helping with donations, helping with volunteer work, and even just helping like spreading this interview, helping our visibility, all of those will help us win in November.
You got a purpose. What is your reason? What is your fighting for? I see you searching.